This is the world's most dangerous motorcycle, and just by touching it, I'm gonna explode. Oh wait, maybe it's not that dangerous. And in fact, to test it, I'm taking this thing to the most infamous road in the entire world, because it's actually where Doodle had her crash, and we're gonna see if I explode.
Someone cue Duel of the Fates. Full speed ahead, number 749. Top gear. Almost 60 miles an hour. Groove pavement. I am no longer alive. I have died. Oh, wait. No, hold on. I hit bumps and groove pavement, and I still exist. Now, this time, for real, I'm going to go across this bridge, and I'm going to do what I always do on any new motorcycle I get on. I'm going to induce a steering wobble. I'm going to purposely try to cause my steering to shake. There's going to be a bump right here. Wait for it. Clomp. I don't know, guys. I'm alive.
So what the hell was I doing in the middle of Indiana Amish country trying to get some ancient-looking motorcycle to unalive itself on a public road? Well, a little while back, Doodle had an accident on a Janus motorcycle, and it set the internet on fire worse than a 3-letter acronym on r/conservative. But seriously, there was so much speculation online that people were making reaction videos, then there were reaction videos to the reaction videos, and then there were reaction videos to the reaction videos of the reaction videos. It was this never-ending self-filleting Ouroboros of internet mayhem. The riding community fell into two camps. One, it was the bike's fault, and two, it was Doodle's fault. Now, I'm not here to pontificate on all that. That horse has been kicked so hard it could score a field goal in Soldier Field from center field of Darrell K. Royal in Austin. My question is, what's a Janus actually like to ride? People have been hating or white knighting so hard from behind their keyboards, you'd almost forget that it's a motorcycle and you can go ride one. What we're looking at today is my Halcyon 250. It's a 229cc single-cylinder Honda CG clone motor that's made in China, and I have a ton of experience with. It's been on the channel before in the form of the Hawk 250. The Halcyon makes 14 horsepower and 12 foot-pounds of torque. It weighs in at 263 pounds dry, so we'll call it 280 fully fueled, and it has a base price of $7,495. In case you're curious where I got this bike, Yami actually gave it to me after he was done making content with it. But I can already hear the keyboard warriors saying that I cannot be honest about this motorcycle, because even though I got the motorcycle from one of Janus's biggest critics, it's somehow sponsored by... Screw it, let's just hit the road.
So, that aside, let's talk about this thing in the twisties, shall we? Honestly, it's just a lot of fun. I'm not taking these corners very quickly, and we'll talk about why in a second. But let's just talk about the handling on this thing. It is very light, and so side to side, it moves over really quickly, despite the fact that it has 18-inch front tires, and they're pretty spindly in the rear, which tends to make it feel a little unbalanced. At least that's how it was on my VMAX. Thing was terrible on the side of the tire with a really spindly rear tire, but honestly, even with the long wheelbase, it's quicker side to side than you'd think. And you really don't have to give much input on the bars. I don't love the fact that they're back here. I kind of want them up here. I want to be leaned over the gas tank. I feel a little bit more, a little bit too upright, but this is like what the bikes were like back then, so okay. But I don't know. I have a lot of fun taking this thing through corners. I will note, though, I have increased the front end preload by about 50%. There's on, I guess it would be off 50%, 100%. And that has made a big difference. Another thing that makes a difference on a bike like this is tire pressure. It's very reactive to these little changes that you can make to the motorcycle. Now, let's talk about the power. Okay. It exists. There is some. You twist the throttle and you will start to accelerate sometime. I mean, it's making like 14 horsepower. What do you want? This is very much a motorcycle you got to ride by keeping your corner speed up, because there is no way to power this thing out of a corner. Let's do a top speed run, shall we? We're going downhill too. Full time. 61. That's about all this motorcycle's got. Next up, let's talk about the brakes. Okay, I don't like them. They stop the motorcycle better than the Flintstones method. But that's about all they do. It's got steel lines. These are Spiegler steel lines. So, you know, made in the USA, which is cool. They are definitely more set dressing, though, on this motorcycle than anything else. I think they're really hampered by a weak master cylinder. It feels adequate. It's a little bit wooden, though. But again, the way that I tend to ride this motorcycle is I'm using momentum to get me around a corner and out of a corner. So I'm not really braking too much. And honestly, when you brake, it's not really causing a lot of fork dive up there, so it's not really loading the front tire. I have noticed that sort of plowing effect that you get with a leading link suspension on here. It's not nearly as pronounced as on the 450s. Stay tuned and you'll see. But the 450s have a big plow effect. This one really doesn't have that too much. It's there, but it's not super noticeable. But at the end of the day, this bike is competent around a corner. It's not the best in the world, but I don't feel like I'm gonna explode and die, and you know, I don't feel like I'm, you know, in any more risk than I am on any other motorcycle. It's fun. But you heard me talking about some of the cons out here on the road. We gotta pull it over and we gotta talk about some more of them, because as much fun as this bike is, there's a lot of stuff that you do need to know about on this bike.
One thing you could complain about would be the lack of a fancy dashboard on here. I mean, I wouldn't, because that's kind of the whole point. But for those of you wanting to drag a motorcycle like the Janus into the 21st century, that's where our sponsor Chiji comes in. They make the best aftermarket dashboard for your bike, and it doesn't matter what kind. You can have a sport bike, a cruiser, a penny farthing bicycle, or a Janus, which is basically the same thing. And in a few minutes, you could add Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, forward and rearward facing dash cams, and more. You can even add their OBD scanner if your bike is compatible and pull data directly from your motorcycle. Click that link down below to check out everything that Chiji has to offer and get 10% off with the code SPITESCORNER. Now we have got to start with what is the biggest drawback for me on this entire motorcycle, and that is it is putting out some negative waves, Moriarty, and if you got that deep cut, give yourself a pat on the back. Seriously, the vibrations on this bike, oh my God, they are rough bubbles. So it's not helped by the fact that this is a hard-mounted single-cylinder motorcycle that really doesn't have a lot of balancing going on. It's basically the most nuclear bomb-proof motor ever made. I know KLR guys think their motor is tough. I know that DRZ guys think that their motor is tough. You can find this motor everywhere from the Savannah to the Mongolian steppe. It is the most indestructible little motor, but it's not a very modern motor, insofar as it even has a Kickstarter. That means if you're going to attempt to isolate some vibration in here, you either need to rubber mount this motor, which it is not, or you need some big heavy bar end weights, which this motorcycle does not have. I have already ordered a set of Janus's bar weights on here because honestly, for me, without them, riding this motorcycle right now is bordering on intolerable. Now, we talked about the motor out in the twisties and how the power is delivered via snail mail, but I do want to talk about the transmission in this motor. It is actually really nice. It snicks into gear well. There's a nice positive click every single time you shift gears. The only negative thing I really have about that is when you go down into first gear, you can hear it. It's still clicking as if it's moving down. I don't think Janus can fix that, because they'd have to take it up with the manufacturer. But if the manufacturer could make it so that in fifth gear you can no longer pull up on the lever, and in first gear you can no longer push down on it, that would make a big difference on this bike. It's one of those things that's really annoying, because otherwise the transmission's great. Next thing we got to talk about is something that has to do with the ergonomics on here. Now, I'm a bigger guy. I'm 6'3" in my boots. I'm 240 pounds, and my reach to the bars is totally comfortable. However, if you're shorter, this is a very long gas tank, and you're gonna be leaned forward to reach these handlebars. For me, the issue ergonomically actually comes from right here at the base of the gas tank, because there's a kind of a sharper edge right here that it reminds me a lot of actually an MV Agusta, because when I put my leg up against the gas tank, I can feel that corner of the gas tank digging into my thigh. It'd be really nice if Janus could taper this just a little bit more so that, you know, it doesn't have such a harsh edge right up next to me, because I really just kind of have to ride around it. I either sit further back on the seat or I sit further forward so that I can avoid that single pressure point, because it does build up over time. And honestly, I don't think it would impact the look on this motorcycle even a little bit. And I wouldn't want it to either, because I really like the way this bike looks. I had it on the bumper hitch when I was going up to NJMP, and spoiler alert, when I went over to Goshen, I had it on the bumper hitch of my truck, and so many people wanted to come talk to me about this motorcycle. It's so eye-catching. I love the way it looks. It looks so unique. There is no other motorcycle that looks like this thing, and I wouldn't really want to mess with it. There are some stuff on here though that they need to start thinking about messing with though, namely these mirrors. These mirrors suck. The actual housing of the mirror is some cheap plastic, and they just sort of, you know, wander around and vibrate. On a motorcycle that does have some nice fit and finish, this is a curious oversight, and it really does feel like they just got the cheapest Amazonist mirror they could. The last thing I want to mention is that this motorcycle is very cold-blooded, and if you're not used to carburetors, that may weird you out. It's going to stumble and die on cold mornings. Sometimes, even here in the heat of Texas, it has some issues waking up. Some days, it's totally fine, and it would be really nice too, Janus, guys, if you could make it so that it can start in gear. You know, you can just pull in the clutch and, you know, start it in gear, because kickstand's up, clutch is in. Why? See what I mean about the cold-blooded thing though? Like, it's not super happy, but then now it's happy. You really do just have to warm this thing up a little bit for it to feel right. The PZ30 carburetor that's on here is fine, but a Nibby carburetor works wonders on this motor. And in fact, I already have one. I just wanted to review it stock for you guys. Now, speaking of me suffering for you guys, this is a review, and this is the part of the review where I tend to go get on the highway, so let's go do it. Better thank me at home, you bastards.
Now, this is officially the worst part of Janus ownership to me, and that is attempting to get anywhere in Texas. Normally, I would do this section on the highway. This is not highway legal. I cannot get up to highway speeds. I cannot cruise at highway speeds. That is the toll road I usually take to get into town, and that is an 80-mile-an-hour tollway. And 80 miles an hour is an entirely aspirational number. The entire top half of this dashboard here, the speedometer, entirely aspirational. I couldn't get there if I was going downhill with a stiff breeze at my back. And so, as a result, we end up stuck at a lot of stoplights. So getting anywhere on the Janus takes a long, long time. And it's not just because it's slow, it's just because you can't use the most efficient way to get around America. Now, you got to consider a little bit of where this motorcycle is meant to be, and a commuter in Texas is not it. So do I necessarily fault the motorcycle for being what it is? No. So I do want to show you real quick just how stable this motorcycle actually is. So we're hitting 60 miles an hour, and I'm going to induce a steering wobble, and it straightens right back out. So, I don't know. Maybe it's my weight. Maybe it's the fact that the wheelbase is 16,000 feet long. It's a pretty stable motorcycle. It just finds its place. So, yeah. Stable. Oh my god, I hate being stuck at red lights. It is nothing but it's like 10 or 15 miles of red lights for me to get where I'm going. It's going to take forever to get to the twisty roads I normally ride. So, yeah, not looking forward to that. So I'm going to spare you that. We're going to get back in the twisties. Okay, folks, so I wanted to wrap my thoughts up by answering a couple of questions. First and foremost, is the Janus a safe motorcycle? Well, the answer to that question is no, but not for the reasons you think. No motorcycle is a safe motorcycle. They're just all dangerous. Cars are dangerous. Being on the road around other people is a dangerous thing to do. So in that sense, this motorcycle is no more or less dangerous than, say, my Super Duke. In fact, if we're going to compare the kind of riding that I typically do on the Janus versus on the Super Duke, I'm just cruising around right here. I'm enjoying the ride. This is probably the slowest I've ever gone down this road. And so in that sense, I would argue that I'm safer on this thing. The second question I want to answer is this motorcycle good and or is it worth its price? I got to review the bike I'm riding, right? So the bike is cold-blooded. It's hard to wake it up sometimes. Sometimes it fires right up. Sometimes it doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning. And in that sense, that's a bit of a bummer. You got to coax it to wake it up a bit. Some of the materials on here, like the mirrors, they're not good. They're not good. But the rest of the motorcycle is made in Indiana. So if Harley Davidson gets away with selling a motorcycle for $12,000, or at least they used to, that makes the same power, but ching. I don't see why the Janus can't. I think a lot of people have a sticking issue with the fact that the Janus here is using an imported motor. And yeah, it using an imported motor, sure. Maybe that makes it not made in America, but I've seen where they make these. I consider this motorcycle made in America. But let's also compare it to like other motorcycles in this price point. Namely, an MT-07, right? If you're throwing down that kind of money, you could get yourself an MT-07, and this is in no way comparable to an MT-07 or a Duke 390 or anything like that. But it's its own motorcycle. It's not trying to compete with that, and the guy or gal who's buying this motorcycle knows that. They're not buying it because it competes with a modern motorcycle. They're buying it because it's the only option for a bike that is modern but also built old. They don't have to deal with all of the pain in the ass of owning a motorcycle from the 20s. They have a motorcycle that looks like it's from the 20s. And in that sense, yeah, I do think it's worth the price. I do. Would I buy one? Probably not. At least that was my original thought. Now, though, I'm thinking, a used Janus? Sure, I'd probably pick one up for fun. It's a really unique ride. It really is. And in that sense, let's answer the last question. Do I like it? Yes, I love this motorcycle. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun. It's so unique, and it's so different from any of my other motorcycles. It's truly its own one-of-a-kind thing. And it's really hard to find that in the motorcycling industry. And for that alone, it just tickles my giblets, man, to use a Whitneyism. I really dig this thing. And because I dig it, I'm going to be hanging on to it for a little while and doing a whole build series on it. So stay tuned for that. The next video is actually me taking this up to Goshen to go hang out with the guys from Janus and have them fix some of the stuff, because this bike was not happy before. Yeah, I had them fix it. So stay tuned. Catch you in the next one. See you later.